Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. On today's interview, we have a very special guest, the legendary Michael Angelo Batio, guitarist of Nitro and one of the most fastest guitarists of the era. In this interview, we do a deep dive into Nitro's debut album, O.F.R. We talk about the writing and the recording process, stories from the studio, the making of Freight Train, the music videos, and what it was like being a part of one of the most over-the-top and exciting bands of the late 80s. We also talk about Michael's guitar journey, life during the Nitro years, behind-the-scenes stories from the era, and a whole lot more. This was an awesome conversation packed with great stories and insights, and I think you guys are really going to enjoy this one. Huge thanks to Michael for coming onto the show. It was an absolute honor. Guys, make sure to follow Michael's socials in the description below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow the podcast and to the channel if you're new. And as always, let me know who you'd like to see me interview next.
What's up,
Enjoy
guys,
the
and
interview.
welcome back to the channel. And today I have a very, very special guest, Michael Angelo Batio, and we are here to talk about, one of your first Nitro albums. Actually, in fact, it's the debut album, Out Fucking Rages, that actually came out a few days ago. It was the album anniversary.
That's right.
Man, when you look back on that album, what's the first memory that comes to mind for you?
Well, it was. I have a very good memory. I mean, there were so many cool things that happened with Nitro, and meeting somebody like a Jim Gillette was a life changer. And it really, he was an athlete. The guy is a walking death machine. He's an MMA black belt in all these different weight categories. But even back then, the thing that comes to mind most is we had a great time and we worked super hard. And the label encouraged us, wanted us to be extreme. I mean, if you heard our demo tapes, uh, we did Freight Train and some of the songs on O.F.R. They sounded great. I mean, Jim still sang the highs. I still played fast, but it was in like a normal parameter you listen back and like, okay, it's really killer. The label made us, they pushed us to the edge and we jumped over it. So that's what the takeaways are from me, when I think back. But there's so many good memories. It was really a great time in my life.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I've seen from other interviews you've done, you have said that the label has pushed you to the max, and you guys, I mean, what was so different for you? How did you adapt to that, the label pushing you so far?
Well, um, I had already been signed to a major label. So I was already on Atlantic Records. I had already toured with Aerosmith. I was on Shrapnel Records with Mike Varney, the guy that discovered Yngwie and Vinnie Moore and John Five, and the list, Marty Friedman, the list goes on and on. So I had already had a lot of experience by the time I joined Nitro. And the thing, repeat the question. I'm sorry, I'm digressing with all this stuff. Say,
No,
repeat the
I
question
said,
again,
how did
please.
you adapt to being,
Oh, the
pushed far
adapt.
to the max?
Yeah, I apologize
There you
because
go.
there's so many memories that go with it. I grew up in the Chicago area. The Chicago rock sound was Cheap Trick, REO Speedwagon. Now, granted, Trent Reznor and a lot of other people came, but when you hear me play on Atlantic Records 4 years before Nitro, I played really fast, but I always worked out the solos. Everything worked to the music, and I co-wrote every song on both the Nitro albums and the Holland album and on major labels. So the adaptation for me was LA back then, especially brought out, if you went there as one thing, LA turned you, if you were dedicated, it turned you into the best version of yourself, whatever that is, good and bad. LA is the land of, it has everything in every extreme, even normal stuff. So like, and so the biggest adaptation for me is when I realized metal is based off of things I had my degree in,
Mm.
harmonic minor scales. It's a very modal playing, do, 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 Megadeth. And so I realized I could do it. And I realized I was super fast, even though I never grew up thinking about being the fastest. It never even dawned on me because I always could play fast. It's like big deal. And so it was like I awoke. The sleeper has awoken. I realized I could do this. And so, and I was already older. I was in my early 30s. But Jim, I met him, he was still a teenager. So he was young. And so when we did our first album, we're talking 20, 21 years old. And so he was this young guy, this athlete that could do anything vocally. So he was ready to go for it, and I realized I could do it. So that was it.
I mean, you and Jim have a vast friendship, and you're still friends to this day, I believe.
Yes.
And
Yep.
you actually joined with his solo record in 1987. How did you build that
Yes.
chemistry up to that first Nitro album?
Well, Jim hired me, and he had the bass player from Eddie Money produce the record, and he contacted me, because we all used to hang out on the Strip every night. I was on Sunset Boulevard. I mean, I was a Hollywood vampire for real, and a lot of us were Warrant, all the bands that came out of LA. We all hung out on the Strip. It was like just ask any one of us. But what happened was I met Jim at a party in Venice Beach, and he was only like 16 or 17 at the time, and he was in a band called Tough, Tuff.
Yes.
And he was just great looking, tall, like this Nordic guy. And he was getting popular. He had the vocal lessons. So he contacted me and he hired me to play on the record. I mean, it was a paid session. And I worked with him and I worked with this great guy, Ralph Carter, the producer, and I really liked the songs, like songs like Angel and White. And man, I mean, and I realized these songs are really good. They're real good. And Jim and I hit it off, and Ralph was really particular in the studio. He needed certain grooves, but I was already a seasoned session guitarist, and so I was ready to jump. I just jumped in, and we hit it off really well. Jim and I did. And then I had my own band called the Michael Angelo Band, who was really great. I had a great singer, same age as Jim. They knew each other, but I was having a very difficult time getting signed. We just, these other bands are getting signed, and I'm out there in LA, and I wasn't writing the caliber of songs. I like to write with people. I'm better as a collaborator. So if I have a really good singer, it's prolific. And with the band Holland, Tom Holland was amazing. Great singer, great writer. I wrote great songs. I thought I didn't have that chemistry with the Michelangelo band. And I'd give tapes to labels, the major labels and friends I knew in LA. And they were like, well, what about you and that Jim Gillette guy? And all I heard about is Jim Gillette, Jim Gillette, Jim Gillette. So finally, Jim and I started talking, and I've said this in other interviews, but it's great. I had the song Freight Train and Long Way from Home, the music to both songs, uh, pretty much done in my head. And I had demoed off, and I had the song Freight Train that was called Believe in Yourself. I was like, believe in yourself, believe in yourself. And Jim listened to it. He goes, dude, that's really stupid. And in about 5 minutes, he wrote Freight Train with me. And same thing with Long Way from Home. I had all these really beautiful things. It was kind of my version of Led Zeppelin. I heard Jimmy Page and all this stuff, and really cool chords, and every note on that picking was worked out just like Freight Train. And Jim took 5 minutes to write the song. Next thing I know, Long Way from Home. And so that's what happened. We just had this natural writing chemistry. And Jim being an athlete, I can't stress that enough. His work ethic was insane. I mean, we used to get up, dude, we got to write songs, man. Then we went to the gym and train. People say, they see me in a Gold's t-shirt back then, and I was really thin. And dude, did you work out? We had a Gold's Gym endorsement. If I took off my shirt, I was ripped. I was just really thin. And I hate to say it, people were much thinner back then. So I didn't look as skinny back then as I look today. It's all relative, but when people are 200 kilos, and 160 centimeters tall, so it's just a different world, but we worked super hard. And that really is the story with Nitro. Hard work, it was relentless, relentless. And Freight Train was about us. We weren't stopped. Didn't matter. Love us or hate us, we don't care. Just doing it. And if you like it, great. If you don't, that's fine too. That was it.
I mean, yes, you guys had an amazing work ethic, but there was some other band members in your band. You had TJ Racer and Bobby Rock. How was the chemistry with those guys with the writing the songs when it came to start writing for that first album?
Well, TJ was great, and he was young like Jim. Bobby was our he played on the first album, but he never toured with us because he was a very in-demand drummer. He was in Vinnie Vincent before that, and Jim again, he targeted Bobby. I don't mean he stalked him, but he said, dude, we need a drummer like Bobby Rock, because Bobby was really fast on single stroke rolls, and he used these things called rototoms, like, and I did alternate picking. So Bobby was the drumming equivalent to me as far as what he could do technically. And so when he played, I was able to go, just match every note. And, but Bobby had an offer from the band Nelson that we could not match. They paid him a lot of money. I mean, he's a great looking guy, fantastic drummer, great dude. We're still friends. I saw him late last year, but but Jim and I were the main songwriters. So really, TJ did his part on bass. He was a great bass player, very good with tapping. At the end of O.F.R, you hear, we called him Racer solo, and we let Bobby go and sing. I mean, my idea of great drumming is just groove. And what else? Whatever. I like to hear drums. I like people to play. And I'm not a micromanaging leader. I'm a leader that gets people who I love to listen to and let them do their thing. And that's really, but Jim and I really were Nitro, and the other members were, not saying that they weren't a part of the band, but we were really the band. It was our direction, our music. And then, we got players to fit our vision of what we wanted.
And that vision you had, is there anything you want? Well, think now because you're older and the years have gone by. Is there anything that you would have changed or improved on, or wish you could have done better, or are you happy with the way it went?
The performances, I think, are amazing. I mean, listen to Jim. There was no auto tune. He could sing really good, and too.
Yeah.
I mean, he could sing anything. He could sing high, low, death metal voice. He just could do everything. The thing that, and we even did, the label mixed and mastered our album, taking all the mids out. They accentuated the ultra highs and the ultra lows. So you hear when you put our music on compared to other bands of the era, you hear this unbelievable low end and really top end, but my rhythm guitar and everything in the center was scooped, and they mastered it and they scooped the mids. And unfortunately, the master tapes got destroyed. There was a flood in my studio. It wasn't bad, but the tapes got damaged, and we couldn't remix it. But Jim and I even offered to use our money from our first residual check, which would have been more than enough to cover the remix of the record. And this is exactly what the president of the label said. Why? It's selling. And, our album's on the charts. They would not remix it. So I think Jim would agree to this. If I had anything to do again, I would have just gotten a mix that sounded more like Warren or Winger or bands of that era. Listen to the background vocals, completely dry. Listen to my guitar. There is no anything on anything. It's completely dry except for Machine Gun Eddie when I go that's the only spot on the entire record that has any kind of guitar effect. It was completely dry. And so if it would have been mixed by one of the big producers or engineers of the era better, we would have, I think that record the music was there, the performances were there. I think that's the thing. But, and having said this, it still did great.
Mm.
And it's still remembered to this day. So, I mean, you're asking me, what I would have done, but that's really about it.
I mean, like, yeah, like you said, it's done great. I mean, it went on the it debuted at number 164 on the US Billboard charts, I think, and I think it peaked at 140. And I know there's other charts, but that's one of the main ones I wanted to bring up to you. Is that something you're personally proud of, or did you want to see it go higher? Well, obviously you would want to see it go higher, but when you saw that, were you happy with that?
Well, I'll tell you, when we released Long Way From Home, um, we had a remixed by a guy named Bob Margoloff who worked with Stevie Wonder. We had a remix of the song that sounded, quote, normal. It was radio. It doesn't sound like the record. It was just everything was in this place. It sounded fantastic. The song was gaining a momentum on the charts, and we were told to go get off the road. And what happened was they killed our single. Not the label, but the people that worked with the band told us we have to get off the road and we have to record a new album. And I said, are you guys insane? I said, we have a record that is climbing the charts. I said, we have a new video that MTV is embracing, radio's playing. We could have easily gone 100 points higher, easily. We had all the momentum in the world. We were selling out everywhere. It was a business decision that I said was wrong back then, and it's wrong till this day, and I was right. And what happened was the label got pissed, stopped. Our momentum stopped. So that album stopped right when it was ready to gain all the momentum. So I'm very proud of it, but I'm also very aware of what it could have done and how I didn't make mistakes like that in the future. And because it's kind of my metaphor is like riding a wave. Not that I surf, but when you get that wave and you know it's a big one and you've got it down and you know you can ride it, you don't just bail. You don't jump off the surfboard. You ride the wave.
You keep
We
going,
didn't ride. The wave was just peaking and we got off the wave, and that's it.
and then
But
no, you go on. Sorry.
no, I'm just saying, but hindsight's always 2020. I'm still here today. Jim is still here. He's doing fantastic. And Nitro is still remembered. This record, we were just in Guitar World magazine. A guy named Joe Basso reviewed the record back in the day and hated it and contacted me last year and said after all these years, he's changed his mind. He really realized how good it was. So, I can complain, but these are small complaints. Do I wish things in the perfect world? Yes, but it's not a perfect world. And we were still able, the music still is there. The performances are there. And I'm really proud of it.
How did you come over, like, like you just said, someone you knew didn't like your album? How did you, when it was that time, how did you respond to the media and critics when they were saying negative things about the band? Or did you know that you guys were making such a big impact around the strip that you wanted to keep going and you just guys didn't care?
Well, we never, the only bad reviews we got were in big magazines, so on the strip, it was kind of meaningless because once Nitro got signed, we didn't play the strip. We were on tour, and but what I found out was this: that see, one of the reasons our label made the record sound the way what it did turned out is the president called it sonically abrasive. He wanted parents to be pissed off when they heard this album, and it worked. The first thing, I mean, the kick drums are so loud. It's like, put it in a car, it blows windows out. Everything about Nitro was extreme. So the label loved it. And I learned this a long time ago. Even with YouTube, I was a columnist for Guitar World, and I did 6 columns in YouTube studios in New York City. And they told me that I'm a disruptor. Now, this was before COVID. And I go, what do you mean by that? And they said, there's something about you. Whatever you do, people are interested in watching. And so, and Jim was like that for sure. And so the label liked bad publicity is good publicity. You get banned. It was rock. It was rebellious. So if somebody said, oh, these guys suck, there was no internet for us to respond. We just went on stage and caved in ceilings. And Jim went, wow! And, you know, I'm just tearing it up exactly like the record. So they could say what they want, but it fueled the whole momentum. The label wanted people, not everybody to like us. But see, the cool thing was, it wasn't if you didn't like us, it's people hated us. Okay. It was like, Nitro derangement syndrome or something. But there were so many people that liked the band to respond against that. And it was just a great time. I mean, I laugh when I think about it. You know, nobody likes to read a negative review, but we also got a lot of positive things, and we were selling out everywhere. You know, the first beginning of the tour, we started, but once our video got on MTV, it was just insanity. You know, so and we were able to do. We toured for 6 months on that album, just almost continuous, 2 3 month legs of the tour. We just went from the U.S. to Canada, the U.S. to Canada. That's what we did. We just scooped loops around North America, and it was just great.
How was those early Nitro shows about on that album?
Well, no big band would let us tour with them.
Oh,
For real. They said, we're not going to get a guy. We're not going to have an opening act with the guy plays 2 and 4 guitars and a 20-year-old singer that can shatter glass with his voice. We had a very difficult time becoming an opening act. And we were through, I mean, Rhino Records alone was worth $250 million. So we had Capital Distribution, Warner Brothers. You know, we had a lot of money behind us. The label said it doesn't matter. They gave us huge tour support to play clubs. And so we were playing all the big concert rock clubs. We had our own truck. We carried our own PA system. We had a 5,000 seat, it was called a turbo sound system to play clubs. We were blowing the doors of these venues. It was deafening. When we said the loudest, I'm not now, the Guinness Book of World Records was not there. It was so loud. Girls actually told, her nipples are shaking. Some dude goes, dude, my fucking eyeballs, man, they're shaking in my head, bro. I mean, this was physical pain when we played. So we had plenty of money to tour, and it was great. We had our own tour. We had a tour bus. We had a big truck to carry our gear. We carried sound. You know, we had full production, and we didn't carry lights though, because for us the show was us. We didn't need a lot of lights. Just shine the lights and let us go. You know, so we didn't rely on that. But it was awesome.
and yeah, you guys were definitely loud and making an impact, and it certainly brought a lot of people through the doors. I mean, how did you turn the you were so intense on that first album. How did you turn that intensity onto the live stage? Was it when you got onto the stage or before? How did you guys all come together? Right, we need to be as loud as possible and blow everyone's fucking ears off.
well, this is it's a different era. We are in the era now where you can sit in your house with your laptop, create all this music, use AI, write your lyrics, create chord progressions. Back then, the record was done analog, which means there's not one single punch on any solo unless there was a break. If there was a clear-cut break and I stopped, then I would stop. Unless the solo, like in Machine Gun Eddie, the music stops, but I go, brrr, brrr, there's no break. Out fucking ranges, O.F.R. That solo's one of the wildest ones I did. Even Alan Holdsworth went, wow. And he came in the studio and listened to it, the famous fusion guitarist. And so we had rehearsed the music. We did pre-production. We did demos of the songs. I rehearsed with Bobby Rock. I have the tapes of just me and Bobby going over the songs. We played everything to a click track. It was called, when you use, like, say, 127, that's a static click. But Nitro didn't use static clicks. We used movable clicks. So, for example, there's a song called Fighting Mad. That's slower than Fighting Mad. So the drummer had to learn, like, one section might be in 200, but then the next section might be in 208. Then it might go down to 192. I created the clicks. We organically did them to make it sound like the music was supposed to sound. So how did we play like that on stage? That's how we were before we recorded the record. We played shows, we demoed the songs. That was us. It was a different era. We went in there. Bobby didn't punch in drums. He played live. You know, when I played rhythms on Freight Train, you couldn't punch in unless it went da 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 da. And even then, it was so quick. There was no real way to punch in. It's not like today where you can do 9,000 takes and edit the best, bits together. It was completely, you really had to play it. So, but we really performed it. We rehearsed it, we performed, we toured before we did the record. That's why it was so wild when we hit the road.
I mean, yeah, I want to actually talk about the studio stories while we're on that topic.
Sure.
What was the atmosphere like? I mean, all you guys recording?
It was great. Jim and I, well, first of all, he's a walking death machine, so you don't want to mess with him. But I mean, in a realistic way, we're talking a special degree black belt today. He wasn't back then, but he was always athletic, and he was a boxer. He was a wrestler. He's just extremely tough, and he's a big guy, and he can handle pain. He actually got into some fights when we were in Nitro, and I saw him pulverize a couple guys for real. But in the studio, we had a really good engineer. It was Jim and I in the studio almost all the time. I tracked a lot of the vocals because I was fast and I knew the songs better than our engineer. What they used to do, it was LA, so we had the best of the best. We'd have these super expensive microphones and ones that, like, when Jim sang, like, it's been so long. When he sang Long Way From Home, we used a special mic where you could get up really close and sing really breathy. And then we had other mics for when Jim and I did all the background vocals. And I sang with Jim on the ranges I could, he sang the ultra lows and the ultra highs, but I sang with him and I wrote all the harmony parts. The studio was great. We had a great time. And in the studio next to us, there was a girl named Stacy Q. She was a big pop star. She had a song called Two of Hearts. I need you, I need you.
I think
She
I've
was a
heard that
real
one.
big pop star. She was in the studio next to us. Donnie Osmond and a guy named Jose Feliciano. And even at one time, James Hetfield from Metallica had come in. And it was Front Page Recorders in Costa Mesa. But the vibe was just great. We really had a great time doing it, and we had crazy stuff happen too. When we finished the record, we were on the biggest label in Japan called JVC, and the Japanese guys they brought in a whole bunch of Japanese businessmen, and we were the rowdy LA rockers. Okay, so we went in there. I'm going to tell you a story, and it's pretty crazy. We told our engineer to go to a porn shop and get the wildest porn video he could find. Okay, and see on the screens, they had, for example, these square TVs back in the day. They weren't the LEDs. Every big studio had a gigantic TV, so you could watch the automation, but you could also watch TV. And they had video. So we had all these suits come in, all these Japanese businessmen, and we get ready. We press play on the master quarter inch, and they hear, Freight Train starts, and on goes this porno video. on the screen, but we're not saying a word. And I mean, it's like so depraved. And Jim and I are just listening about it, and the guys are they're looking up and they're trying not to look. But everybody can. In about 3 minutes, about after a freight train, Double Trouble starts. On 10 seconds, they go, stop! How can you listen to this? How can you listen? And our label's like, what are you guys doing? Are you guys insane? But we used to just mess with people. That was our thing. And the record did really good in Japan. They loved us, but they're like, these guys are insane. But we used to do stuff, just crazy things. It was almost, there's a phrase, people live vicariously through another artist. Or, I mean, the label loved us. Jim was a great guy. He was super smart. I bet you, he was a street kid. He was kicked out of his house. He's got quite a story, but he just has this positive mental attitude that nothing stops. Watch out, world, ready or not. I'm like a freight train coming. We're not kidding. And I have that mentality too. And being with somebody like him, but we used to just mess with the labels. They loved it. We gave them the record they wanted. See, they wanted the highest, the fastest, and the loudest. They pushed us in that direction. And they said, if you give us this record, we guarantee it's going to be on the charts. And I can safely say, if Long Way From Home would have had its chance to go through the machine, it would have easily gotten 100 points, maybe 100. It would have easily been way more sales. So, and I look back at that, and it's a learning experience for me. But I knew back then it was not the best decision, and I stand by that today. But it was just wild times though. Being with Jim he's great because he's one person I can truthfully say I'd never bet against ever. Because he finds a way to do what he says he's going to do. I don't mean something illegal. I don't mean like that. He's driven. He's driven more than almost any person I've ever met. And that's what I love about him. Plus, we're like family. We get along great. We just had fun. We laugh all the time at the stories. We laughed back then, and we had a good time.
Yeah.
We just didn't fight. We enjoyed the moment. And we look back now and we laugh about it. We still enjoy the moment of those moments today. So that's it.
I mean, you guys were definitely crazy, and Jim's got his own impressive resume. I mean, tough, like you said earlier in the interview, Nitro, and then the black belt. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And you yourself have got an impressive resume. But what's one thing that you want people to remember you by personally when you leave behind your legacy?
Well, I think there's a couple things. One, I don't criticize anyone. Okay, I mean, I'm not one of these artists that has. I play guitar, and I realize my father drilled it into my head when I was a kid, and he said, "Son," he goes, "Yes, you're a great guitar player, great songwriter." He goes, "But you didn't cure cancer." And he goes, "Just remember, don't surround yourself with yes men." That's what he called it, because what happens when stars get big? I mean, I'm at the top of my game now. I headline arenas in the band, some of the biggest arenas in the world now. And so my legacy and what I tried to do in guitar, I'm a credit to the guitar community. My lessons back then changed the way people teach guitar. Things that I talked about back then, I have a degree in music. I used what I learned at the university to teach guitar in a new way. And I was one of the pioneers of that. And, it's look at where guitars has come. Look at how far guitar has come. And what I want to be remembered as is somebody that lived the exact life they wanted to live, which I do. I made my life. Nobody said, "Oh, Michael, we're just going to do all this stuff for you." They didn't give Nitro a record deal. Jim and I worked for it and earned it, and we worked it. The label didn't give us this extreme album. We delivered that because we worked. We were in the studio every day, and the studio was 60 miles from where we lived. So in kilometers, 100 kilometers away, We drove it every day down the 405, which is a nightmare in California. It took us about probably an hour and a half, 2 hours each way. And we did it every day until we finished. But the legacy is this, that I was a credit to the guitar community and I helped change the, people tried to criticize shred. I didn't. I embraced it. I'm like, I learned one thing about critics going to school. Mozart was criticized. One of his operas, The King That Listened to It, it was almost like the movie Amadeus. He didn't like it, and they told him there to change. He wouldn't. He refused. He refused to change his music, and I've refused to change one note of the way I play because somebody told me they wanted it a certain way. And so, unless I was doing a session, and that's what I was paid to do, but my own music, And but I helped guitar, and I moved it forward, and I was a positive influence on the guitar community. And people, if they look at what my life means and what Nitro Freight Train sums it up, it's like sometimes you just need a little blind faith. You know I mean, I've had a lot of death in my life, a lot. I've had things happen to me that I don't wish on anybody. I don't have parents. My nephews, my only living relative, his mom died when he was 12. His father just died a year ago. I've thank God I'm healthy, and Jim's real healthy because we worked out a lot. But I've seen a lot of things in this world, and I just look at, okay, here's the situation. What can I do? How do you turn this into a positive? How do I take from this and move forward? And Jim is like that. I'm like that. People I work with are like that. That's the legacy.